Whether it's bad planning, bad luck, bad timing, or bad inventions, well-intentioned bad decisions have plagued history for thousands of years. Welcome to Historic Hindsight. Hello and welcome to another episode of Historic Hindsight. I'm John, that's Tom, and today we're going to talk to you about animals in World War II.
That's right, Johnny, and don't get super excited about it, although we'll play our fun animal intro for whenever we do animal episodes, but this is going to be rough.
But it's about pets, right? Lovable pets?
Yeah, it's about pets in Britain during World War II.
Oh, cute little English pets then with accents and everything. That's great.
Little English terriers, right? Running around, doing their thing. Except, well, early World War II Britain, Johnny, they made some questionable decisions. Invading neutral nations, dropping pamphlets on the Germans instead of bombs.
I mean, did the pamphlets have threats on them or something, or what?
Yeah, like you should overthrow the Nazi government because they're bad for you. Trust us.
Please fight a war for us.
Kill a crap ton of you in the interim war, but it doesn't matter. Well, Johnny, they also decided that pets were a bad thing during World War II, and they decided to kill a shit ton of pets. And by a shit ton of pets, I mean hundreds and hundreds of thousands of pets were killed by the British government during World War II.
So, but what? Okay, so why were pets considered bad? Was it a strain of resources, or what's going on there?
Yeah, right. Why would you want to have a genocide of poor little kittens and puppy dogs? What could they have possibly done? Well, so we'll jump back right before World War II. So we got pre-war, Nazi Germany's taken over. It's 1938. Things aren't looking so great for peace in 1938 and early 1939. Germany's annexed Austria. They've taken huge chunks of Czechoslovakia and threatened poor little Lithuania into joining them as well. And the entire time, British Prime Minister Chamberlain is claiming that we have peace in our times because I've negotiated with the Germans.
The settlement of the Czechoslovakian problem, which has now been achieved, is, in my view, only the prelude to a larger settlement in which all Europe may find peace.
And they promised us, Johnny, that they won't take any more land, okay? Well, we gave them Czechoslovakia, we let them have Austria, we let them occupy the Rhineland. They said they're done. And
so England's sitting here trying to compromise and be like, you can have a couple of countries, that's fine. But the writing's on the wall that's not going to be.
Yeah, he's not stopping.
Yeah.
He's not stopping. So, well, Johnny, the large government in Britain was a little bit dubious of said peace. You have Churchill, who would eventually take over for Britain, and he was definitely like, no, we need to stop them now. This is ridiculous. They're not going to stop at Czechoslovakia. They're going to keep going.
Yeah, it's at first they came for the Jews, but I wasn't a Jew, and so
I didn't care. Yep. Well, a lot of these, a lot of veterans of World War I and a lot of civilians of World War I remembered when Zeppelins were flying over London and were dropping lots of bombs on London, and they didn't really like that.
But still, they're like, peace is fine. Like, we got
peace is fine, yeah. and technology's changed a little bit, Johnny. So we're no longer flying around blimps that are slow and easy targets. Now we've got bombers that are fast and long range, and you can fly a bomber from Germany and get it to England without too much of a problem and drop some bombs on us.
Right, and they're not going to see the giant balloon floating their way and to run for cover in their bunkers.
Slowly, that they can take 20 days to get ready for. Yeah, it's not that anymore. So obviously lots of government agencies were formed in preparation for if war were to happen, if a blitz were to happen with London, how do we keep civilians safe? So, obviously we built lots of bomb shelters and we created lots of agencies, government entities, because that's what governments like to do when there's trouble is we make a bigger government.
That's right. You have to have more. Yeah, well, you have to have specific groups of people to handle each individual thing. A committee.
Yeah, you have to have a committee.
Everything.
So there's a committee that's formed, and it was called the National Air Raid Precautions Animals Committee, or NARPAC, because right at the start of the rumors of the war, there were a few elderly couples that had older dogs, or couples that weren't really, if there's going to be a food ration, if there's going to be a war, like, what do I do with this 20-year-old cat? Like,
Yeah.
I can't feed it. It's kind of towards the end of its life. So some people were asking, like, is it best if we euthanize it? Like,
Right. Yeah. It's a quality of life
I
issue
send
for
it
the pet, and
to
at the same time, for the
shelter.
for the people as well. They're sitting there trying to figure out how they're going to pay for food for themselves, let alone an animal.
An animal, exactly. And this committee was formed with the support of several other like animal agencies that were around at the time in England, one of which was the People's Dispensary for Sick Animals, the PDSA, which is kind of like our humane societies. Like, they're the ones that took in animals and shelters. And
I mean, our name is way better. Can I say that?
Yeah, the People's Dispensary for Sick. Yeah, it sounds like Soylent Green, like it's made of people.
Yeah.
It sounds like you're gonna cook these animals up.
You just dispense the animals through a little squeeze thing and get your cup of meat.
There was another one called the Royal Society for the Prevention of Cruelty to Animals, or RSPCA, which I believe the RSPCA still exists.
That sounds like an acronym I've heard.
Yeah, the acronym definitely still exists. I don't know if it's the same thing, but it definitely still exists. The rumors of these wars, like I said, did start having a good percentage of pet owners turning to the animal shelters, trying to drop off animals at animal shelters, or if they were at the later end of their life, going ahead and having pets euthanized, which I am not speaking against putting down an animal if it's humane because the animal's sick or dying.
Quality of life for the animal. It's like to get cancer treatment or something for your sick pet, either cat or dog, when it's going to extend their life 6 months. You're doing that for you at that point. You're not doing it for the animal. And it's a selfish thing. Just, if they were in the wild, they would go into the woods, curl up and die. And so give them the dignity of going out peacefully. But yeah, if it's like a healthy 6-year-old golden retriever, like,
what are you doing? Well, do that. The committee's first response, with the help of the PDSA and the RSPCA, NARPAC's first suggestion was maybe, hey, if you can get these animals to the countryside, if you have friends, if you have neighbors, if you have people who aren't in the big cities that aren't going to be logical targets of bombings, then send Rover to the farm. And I don't mean like the farm. I mean like the actual legitimate, farm with
the farm upstate, the one nearby.
Yes.
That you can go and visit again. So wait, so their whole thing, they set up these organizations. It sounds like they're worried about the pets' welfare during the bombings, is what they're.
Yes, they're worried that if the bombs start to drop, if we do have to have food rations again, where's the food going to go for the animals, and where are the animals going to go during the bomb shelters? Because the committees and powers that be said no animals in the bomb shelters.
I mean,
which makes a degree of sense. I mean,
yeah, all right. You can tell people also not to have pets in their apartment, but good fucking luck keeping it out of them.
Right. Well, the PDSA and the RSPCA, they also did come up with a way to register the animals and issued numbered collars to the animals, so that if they did get separated from the owner during a bomb raid, you could, hey, this registered animal with collar 1356 belongs to John Smith. We'll go give this animal over back to John Smith.
I mean, collars are flammable. Wouldn't it be better if they just kind of like tattooed the numbers?
well, Johnny,
like, and,
your logic is going where my logic was when I read about that. I'm like, oh, they marked them and they registered them? Huh. I'm sure in Nazi Germany, they said it was for the protection of the Jews too, that they get registered and marked.
Yeah, a little scary how many similarities there are between how we treat Nazi Germany treated people.
It's going to get worse. It's going to get worse. They formed chief guards with district organizers that manage the responsibility for registering these animals and were responsible for looking for these animals. They even hired qualified veterinary surgeons to work for NARPAC. That's the big overwhelming entity here. Members of NARPAC were identified by wearing lapel badges on their jackets and armbands.
Wait,
that says NARPAC.
Okay, so all right, chicken and egg me on this one. Who started doing this shit first?
Well, over in Germany by this time, we already have, the Nazi swastika armbands and stuff. That's already going
So
on.
they got some of the ideas.
They're
and they're
looking
like,
at that
"Hey,
going,
you know
that's a cool fashion sense. We're gonna adopt that.
Not bad.
The PDSA would create actual gas-proof shelters for some animals, though. So you've got NARPAC, which is the government that's supposedly running all the safety for the air raids, and then you have like the animal shelter groups like the PDSA and the RSPCA. So those are just at home. NARPAC's they're all bad, but NARPAC's a really bad one.
So
Okay.
NARPAC's the one that came out with the intention of maybe not having the best interest of the animals. The other two kind of fell into the PETA route of maybe overdoing it a little bit.
Yeah, they did. They overdo it. So on September 1st, 1939, if you're not aware at home, Germany will invade Poland. And Chamberlain has to eat his words about the whole there's going to be peace in our time, because now Germany militarily invaded a neutral country, and damn it, well, we got to declare war, because for some reason, France and Britain have always had a hard-on about Poland, and I don't know why, but in any case, Germany invades Poland. We got to go declare war on Germany, although when Russia invades it a week later, we say Russia's fine.
Okay, forgive my ignorance. Does France border Poland?
No.
No. Okay.
You've
But
got
France and
basically you got
Germany have
France, then
borders.
you've got like Belgium and Switzerland, and then Germany, and then you got Poland next to
Do you
Germany.
think Poland was kind of their buffer between Europe and Russia? They're like, they're kind of Russia, so we'll.
Which I said, yeah, maybe,
over.
but then why don't you go to war with Russia when Russia invades? But anyways, this is a topic for another episode, because we'll get way off base here if we don't keep going here. But anyway,
so he invaded, and now peace is not an option.
Peace is not an option. The shit hits the fan. War has been declared. And all those pet owners that were already a little worried are now rushing to the animal shelters going, what do I do with this animal? Because what happens after the invasion of Poland is the BBC on radio announces that, well, guys, there's going to be a food shortage in the upcoming months, and expect food rations like in World War I. So this sends everybody into a little bit of a panic. Like, how am I going to afford to feed Rover if I'm only getting a ration of food for myself?
Right. Yeah. Well, and it's something that they recently experienced too.
Yeah.
And I'm guessing the rations got pretty severe and
yeah, they did. Rations actually
World
War I continued all the way up until I believe like the mid-20s or even early 30s. So they basically just gotten off the ration system.
Yeah, and everyone's like thinking, okay, we don't have
to
deal with that shit anymore. That's great. And then now all of a sudden, it's like getting to the end of your tunnel, and then it caves in, and then you have to, take the tunnel that you find to the right now, and it's a much longer path. That's going to cause some people some frustration, I think.
And it gets so bad that in October 1939, the newly appointed Minister of Home Security, Herbert Morrison, requested that NARPAC create official sanctions and measures to deal with the animals under wartime conditions. NARPAC vehicles were now able to run unhindered during air raids, and English officials feared that the citizens would waste food on the pets because there's so little of it to go around. They're going to waste it on their pets instead of eating it for themselves. But I'm sorry. Are we in communist China? Like, who gives a shit what I do with the food ration that I have? If I eat it or if I throw it in the damn sewer, it's my food ration. I can use it how I want. If I want to give it to Rover, I'll give it to Rover, right? Why do you care?
It's not like you do that and then go back and get more rations because you go back, you say, oh, I used some for somebody other than me, so I deserve more. No, you get what you get, and you don't get upset. And then...
Yeah, so, like... I mean, I guess I understand the governments when they have to put in food rationing during a wartime like this. Even in the United States, when we did have an abundance, we never really needed to do a food ration, we did. But still, at the end of the day, use it for how you want to use it. If you want to eat it, great. If you want to sell it to your neighbor because you have extra, sell it to your neighbor because you have extra. If you want to give it to your dog, give it to your dog. Like, don't understand why the government was so concerned about the pet owners might give it to their pets.
I mean, and as far as the people selling their extras, that's free market capitalism, right? Like, isn't that good?
Exactly. We're not in communist China. You can have free market capitalism.
Yeah.
Now, I can't stress this part enough. The first bombs and air raids don't actually happen in London until September 7th, 1940, a year away. Why are we panicking in October 1939?
Well, I mean,
food
do
rationing.
they know they're a year away? Like,
well, no, they don't.
That could be why.
They don't know they're a year away, but food rationing at this point hasn't even gone into effect yet. We're worried about, well, they might be using the rations for their, but it doesn't matter because there aren't any rations yet.
They don't even have them yet?
The rations don't come in until January of 1940, so
So
we haven't even started rationing. We're just pre-panicking.
So the government is pre-worrying about what people might potentially do with the rations that they're allowed.
Yep.
I mean, what? Why? Why do they give a fuck?
I don't know, Johnny.
You want to know why? You want to know why, Tommy? Because it was a committee put in charge of
there was definitely a committee.
Everything about it, and so
you
they
probably had 10 pet owners that had a dog fighting ring that went to go put their dogs down when there was the first panic of war. And so the government looked at that and went, we got to come up with a way to efficiently kill these animals. So
I assume before this there was a large spay and neuter order or program put into place?
No, none of that, Johnny.
No?
At this point, in October 1939, what's mostly going on is what most parents are doing with their kids. So just like parents are sending their children off to the countryside for the fear that the Germans might be bombing, the pet owners are doing the same thing. They're taking that earlier advice and they're sending their animals off to the countryside to farms.
Okay.
Not bad. But NARPAC would respond to the growing animosity by releasing a pamphlet called Air Raid Precautions Handbook number 12, the Air Raid Precautions for Animals.
So there's 1 through 11 somewhere too, I assume?
I would assume that there's a number 1 through
11.
But
animals at number 12 seems, I feel like that they would have come up before that. Like it feels like, I don't know, like your family.
Especially when NARPAC is only in existence because of animals. Like, it's not like this is the entire air raid committee. No, this is a subsection of that just deals with animals.
And it's not version 12 either.
No. And the pamphlet says, and I quote, "If at all possible, send or take your household animals into the country in advance of an emergency." But it concludes with, "If you cannot place them in the care of neighbors, it really is kindest to have them destroyed." This article, right? This was printed in almost every newspaper. It was announced by the BBC on radio. So you're getting it in newspapers, you're getting it delivered to your house, and you're getting it on radio announcements that the government is encouraging you, if you can't find somebody to take care of your animal, go ahead and have it killed. So there is a mass rush on animal shelters and animal hospitals to euthanize these pets.
I mean, I have an asshole cat. Not saying I might not take advantage of something if the government were to suggest something like that to me. But cats are different, but dogs especially are treated like children. That's why people call themselves fur mom and dad and all that bullshit, which is different, but whatever. But that's how they treat them. Like, could you imagine if we're like, okay, send your kids out to the countryside and see how they do, and then if you can't do that, probably just kill them because there's a chance they could die in a bombing, so you might as well kill them ahead of time.
Yeah, I mean, they're basically saying you might not have enough food to feed the pet might die in a bomb, so just go ahead and kill it now. Put it out of its misery.
This is the problem with AI taking control over humanity and trying to save it. It's, we can't save you, so you all have to die now. Like, that's basically what we're saying. Like, there's a chance that they might die, so we're going to make sure that they do.
Now, the PDSA and the RSPCA were like, what the fuck? Don't do that. No, like, what? Like, there are other options. Just hang on a second.
This seems extreme. Like, you went 0 to 100 real quick.
But like I said, these animals weren't allowed in the air raid shelters, so there was still this mass panic, and the PDSA was kind of like forced to, well, shit, what do we do? There was another agency called the Battersea Dogs and Cats Home, which is a shelter that was opened in 1860 of all things, survived World War I, and was able to operate through all of World War I, and they would survive World War II. And I couldn't find any numbers for any other animals, but they did have their numbers for the dogs. And through World War II, they would save 145,000 dogs. They would take them into the shelter, and they would save these animals. So if this one agency could figure out how to feed and shelter 145,000 fucking dogs, I'm sure we can come up with something.
Yeah, it's not like, I mean, I'm sure production and storage and everything is different. But dog food, I imagine there were warehouses filled with dog food and cat
Humans
food.
aren't going to be eating the dog food unless we get really desperate.
Right, and then at that point, like, you're eating your dog. You're not bringing him to a shelter to have him killed. If you're that desperate, you're just gonna cook him. But yeah, like, why can't other agencies find similar solutions?
I don't know. The PDSA just went ahead and went along with the NARPAC's, Nazi plan because, well, their hospitals were overrun, and people were just dropping off their animals en masse onto their doorstep. They're like, well, we don't have the means to shelter or feed these animals, so just like, your whole PETA.
Well, I mean, to be fair to them, Tommy, they're just following orders.
They are just following orders. The PDSA founder, Maria Dickin, is quoted as after the war as saying, "Our technical officers called upon to perform this unhappy duty will never forget the tragedy of those days." You fucking think you murdered countless animals for no reason?
Can you imagine being one of those vets that had to put I imagine, I guess, I don't know how they put them all down. I'm imagining they brought them all in and let their owners hold them and gave them a little shot, like the last time I took my cat to get be put down. But that's probably not.
I think it was a little bit more. Well, we'll get
efficient?
there. So in the space,
efficient?
In the space of a few weeks, over 400,000 pets were put down or murdered or genocided, holocaustified, whatever word you want to use for it. 400,000 animals were killed in a couple of weeks, and
what do you do with those bodies?
There's mountains of them outside of these hospitals. Just animals piled up on top of it. They mass cremations. Obituaries, Johnny, began appearing in newspapers for pets that lost their life to this tragedy, but fuck those parents or animal pet owners, whatever you want to call them, for putting an obituary in a page. You made the conscious choice to take your perfectly healthy animal, and because you might get bombed and you might have a food ration, and again, I can't stress this enough, this is November.
Yeah.
There aren't food rations. There aren't bombs being dropped.
Yeah.
There is a phony war. We're making fun of Britain for having a phony war, and it's called the phony war because Britain right now, all they're doing is taking their bombers, flying them over Berlin, and dropping leaflets that say the Nazis are bad, reconsider joining them, as opposed to dropping bombs. And we're worried about a food ration that it doesn't exist. It doesn't exist. I would understand if this is war-torn Britain that is being actively bombed and decimated and people are legitimately starving. I can understand maybe.
Yeah.
But before this is a pre-panic.
I don't know.
Pre-panic.
If you ask me, I have big old fat cats. And if we end up in a situation where we're getting bombed and they're like, oh, you might not be able to feed your pets. Well, guess what? If I can't feed them, then I'm probably not eating well. And there's a lot of meat on those bones. I'm not going to take them and have them murdered and burned and cremated when I could make a stew or some bullshit. If it's going to be that bad. And if it's not going to be that bad, I don't need to have my pet killed.
Well, and Johnny, I was going to wait till towards the end of the episode before I discuss that, but since you already brought it up, they don't eat them. They don't use the meat for other things. They take the animals and they put them in mass graves or cremation and just, that's it. Like,
I'm sorry.
If you're that desperate, at least use the animals to feed hog farms, right? Like, it's England. There are going to be hog farms.
Other animals,
The pigs would eat they'll eat anything. A pig will eat anything. So at least give them some of these, this animal meat that you could then turn the pig into bacon later. At least do that. If you're not comfortable eating the animal, that's fine. At least do that. Or take these animals that you killed, make animal food out of them that you can feed to your cats and dogs. Yeah. They won't give a shit.
No, they don't know. Also, have they not heard of hot dogs? Was that not invented yet? I know it's an American thing.
I don't know. I'd have to look that up to see when hot dogs were.
Make some friggin' hot dogs out of them, guys. Like, what are you doing?
Well, and like there's a really good book, and I actually do suggest readers at home if you ever get the time to read. It's like 1 minute after or something along those lines. It's a series of books. There's like 1 minute after, 1 year after the first book. In that, there's an apocalypse basically that happens, and everybody's starving. And the main character in the book has a pet dog that he winds up killing. he himself feels too guilty to eat it, but he takes it over to his neighbors that he knows are starving and gives the animal to them. So that way, hey,
Yeah,
look.
that's fair.
And it would be, and I bring that up because that's probably what I would do in the situation, Johnny. I don't know if I would be able to eat my own cats, but
I
I
could
would
eat
give
my
them
own
to you to
cats.
eat, and then I would take your cats to eat your cats. We'd
Man,
do a
I'm
switchy
not
swap.
trading. You know how much meat I have on my cats? I've been spending years plumping them up. Now, if I had a dog, I'm not eating my dog. I'm sorry. There's a
Well,
difference
I
between
see.
dogs
I'm
and
the vice
cats.
versa. I'm a little bit more. I wouldn't have a problem eating my dog as much as I like my cats better.
Huh. That's
It's
an
just,
interesting dynamic. I'll bet you're in the minority.
I probably am the minority, but I would
I'll
have.
bet it's like 15 to 20% would eat their.
Comment down below if you would rather eat a dog or a cat. We got way sidetracked.
We need to
on
get
this.
enough listeners so we can do polls on stuff like this because that's an interesting question right
Yeah, it is an interesting question. But within a month, the literal mountains of dead animals, like I said, outside of the PDSA hospitals were there. The local vets and the PDSA were kind of running out of chemicals to use to kill said animals.
Yeah.
So right next to this article, the Air Raid Precautions Handbook number 12, was an advertisement for a captive bolt pistol, which you could use to, at home, humanely put your animal down.
Just a little.
Shoot it in the face with a bolt.
It's sell it in a kit.
It's very similar to what they use modern day. Like, have you ever seen? Well, no, you haven't seen. If you've seen No Country for Old Men at Home, that big air thing that the guy uses to like, and it's basically a compressed air shoots out a rod that stays in the gun.
Yeah.
And so you put that gun up next to an animal, you pull the trigger, that rod goes through the animal, but stays in the gun. So
okay, so
shoot it as much as you have compressed air.
Yeah, for the diabetics at home, it's like pricking your finger with a needle testing kit. It
except instead of a
shoots
needle,
the needle out and pulls it back in real quick, does the damage, and it's good to go. But
instead of a needle, it's a big metal rod that just fucking goes into your brain.
Yeah, just smashes the brain. That's yeah, I don't think I can do that.
Yeah, I couldn't do that. There's no way. There is no, like, I already regret the day that I'm going to have to put one of my pets down because I know I'm going to have to be the one that's in there. Like, I'm not going to just drop them off and leave. I know that there are people who do. And if you do that, I'm not judging you at home. But
I'm a little bit.
I will be in the room holding my animal while it goes, but I will be crying like a little, like, if you don't, most people who know me, especially at my job, think I'm a little heartless, and which for the most part I am. Human life, I'm like,
well,
whatever. But animal life, these poor innocent things that have done nothing wrong and don't deserve anybody to hate or hurt them, I'm very much.
Yeah, I was gonna say I don't see you as being heartless. I think you give every creature a fair chance, and humanity is just squandered that chance and proven that they're all assholes. And so animals haven't done that yet.
Yeah, especially most humans I come in contact with. By January 1940, like I said, with no bombs being dropped, parents began bringing their children home from the countryside, and pet owners were welcoming back their pets from the oh wait, they actually already just fucking killed all their pets, so they can't welcome them back home from the farm.
They're letting their children come back?
Yeah, the children are already coming back.
It's been 3 months or whatever, so
no bombs have been dropped. Come on back, Timmy. So literally in mass, like a lot of these children that were sent right off the bat to the countryside during World War II, a lot of them were brought back into London, like in January, because they're like, well, the bombs are never going to come because they haven't come yet. Well, oops. By this time, a lot of the pet owners went, oh, I really wish I wouldn't have killed the animals because the food rationing is just now going into effect, and it's really not that bad, and oops.
Turns out I jumped the gun a little bit on that.
But Johnny, in the summer of 1940, when the bombs actually do start to fall from Germany.
So they do come. They
do come.
Are the children back in the countryside yet?
Yes.
Or
so what happens is Germany has to take over Poland and secure Poland.
Yeah.
And then it takes them a little bit to get things going. They have to go into Finland or some shit like that, and then it takes them a minute to. Oh wait, no, it's Norway. Sorry,
one of those Nordic
the Nordic countries. They have to go into the fight in the Nordics, and then they're like, it's time to take on France. And once Dunkirk falls, then the Germans are like, time to bomb England once France is out of the war.
So basically, Germany started feeling themselves a little bit.
Yeah, yeah.
Once they took
So,
France, they're like, oh, you know what? Okay. All right,
yeah,
these
we got
big
this.
bad
We'll just-
European powers aren't so big and bad after all. Let's do England too.
which,
And
by
then
the way,
eventually,
we
why
will
not
do
Russia?
an episode on early World War One because like most Americans give the French a lot of shit for what happens in World War One. Oh, they just surrendered like a bunch of pansies. But when you actually know what happened, it was the fucking British that were just a bunch of pansies during the first part of the war.
Yeah,
And we're
you
like,
know,
France, please save us so we can get out of here. We promise we'll help get some of your soldiers out. Oh no. Oh yeah, we don't really have room on the boats. Oh, you went ahead and joined Germany. But you're declaring yourself neutral now, the Vichy government. Yeah, we're going to go ahead and blow your navy to smithereens just in case you get any crazy ideas to use it against us.
yeah.
Like,
So a
crazy.
World War One would be great because I know little about it.
Well, this is World War II, but yeah. But,
Well, no, I know. I've been talking about the beginning of it and everything would be.
Oh yeah.
But as far as France goes, yeah, I've been the United States public education system, and so I know that France's official flag is a surrender flag, and they're all a bunch of pansies, and they just quit on everything. And then every single story I hear about them in some sort of war or battle, like they're saving somebody's ass, or they're like it's the evidence is not lining up with the notion of them being cowards the way that I thought it
really
might.
especially not in beginning World War II. They're really not. But in any case, after the bombs actually do falling, there's a second wave of panic of, we didn't overreact. We got to kill Poochies now. And so there was a second run on the animal hospitals.
So it's everybody that was sitting
another
back.
mass genocide.
Everybody's sitting back probably making fun of their neighbors who are killing their animals. Like, oh, you guys, you're overreacting. It's too soon, blah, blah, blah. You don't need to do that. And then a bomb drops, and they're like, oh, guess we got to kill ours too. All right, time to go.
Yep. But by 1941, after the Battle of Britain was pretty much calmed down, most people realized that this whole thing was over panicking and bullshit, and huge mistakes were made, and we really, really regret killing all those animals.
Oops.
Oopsies. Government officials were blamed for causing the panic, which rightfully so. You went on BBC like the day after war was declared, there's going to be food rations, we're all going to starve, run away! Well,
Yeah.
Way to go, BBC.
So what I would love to see, and I'm sure it doesn't exist, but I'm sure you've seen how pet cats that are let outside just absolutely obliterate bird populations.
Oh, yeah.
Like,
if
they
animals
just
were on
destroy.
their own, they would have been fine.
Yeah, I would love to. Well, I would just love to see, like, if there were any studies or anything done to monitor bird populations, and after I don't know what the final number was, but at least 500,000 pets get killed. You figure at least some of those are cats, a good portion of them probably. Like, what happened to the bird population? Like, what was the resulting effect towards all of nature because they took out all of these murders of these birds?
Well, there was that whole rumor, which isn't, it is not true, but there is that whole like folks tale where the Pope, condemned cats, and in London there was a bunch of cat killing that went on, and that's what caused the plague because the cats weren't killing the mice anymore and the rats, but it's complete bullshit because, well, the only pope that ever decreed anything against cats was like 200 years before the Black Death happened. So
yeah, well, and I was gonna say that would have been like the most logical thinking that occurred during the Black Death. There was none of that happening.
Yeah, there was
like, oh, you know what you need? You need leeches on you to start sucking blood and transfusion.
Yeah, you feeling a little down? Have a leech.
Good God. Oh, they may or may not have just been sucking on somebody that had the plague, but you'll be fine.
Yeah, you're fine. Don't worry about it.
Suck that evil right out of you.
The RSPCA would completely withdraw its support from NARPAC in July of 1941, saying, you guys are fucking crazy. We're done with you. Historian Hilda Keene said it was a traditional way in Britain to signal war, and I quote, "It was one of those things people had to do when the news came. Evacuate the children, put up the blackout curtains, kill the cat."
What the fuck?
Fucking British, man, I tell you.
They do live up to that whole, proper rule follower stereotype they've got.
And I mean, there were shortages on some food items during the war, and there was rationing, and there was reasonable rationing, and there were no rations given to pets. So if you were a pet owner, you would have to figure out how to deal with that. But like I said, just like Battersea, that shelter that saved 145,000 dogs, people figured it out. There were black markets where people went and bought horse meat or other things that weren't legal to sell for human consumption.
Right.
They would go and they would buy that and feed it to their dogs or cats.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, it seemed, well, all right, I was gonna say something, but now I lost my train of thought.
Yeah. Also, the Duchess of Hamilton from Scotland went to London, opened her own sanctuary and a new heated airdrome in Fern, and saved a crap ton of animals that way, because she was a very big cat lover. So I guess she would side with me on the whole cats are better than dogs thing.
Yeah. Okay. So my train got back on the rails. So I was gonna say, it seems to me like they put in these committees and everything to oversee a problem that didn't exist, instead of just. And I know it's nice to imagine having a government that's proactive and that will, foresee future problems. But this was a manufactured future problem. Like,
Yep.
It seems to me like if they got to the point where, oh shit, we have all these people who aren't able to feed their cats and dogs, and so they're bringing them to the shelters, and these shelters are getting overwhelmed, maybe then be like, oh, you know what, we probably need a committee to oversee what's going on with all these shelters and all these extra animals and everything. But, like, why would you put it in place in advance and be like, oh, we're probably going to be overrun, and maybe just kill them so that we don't get overrun?
And I can't reiterate it enough. The vast majority of these pet killings happened before any bomb dropped, before there were food rations. This was all preemptive.
What a bizarre preemptive thing to do.
Right?
Like, if you're going to prepare for a bomb and rations and everything else, build a bomb shelter, bud.
Yeah, why are we?
And if you have one, ask for forgiveness when they're like, oh, why do you have your dog or cat in here? Don't ask for permission. You bring them with you, and then they're like, oh, you can't have that in there. I'm like, oh, okay, well, here you go. You take them. You go ahead and bring them back outside. They're not going to do that. It's a bomb shelter. They're not going to leave that shit.
Well, Johnny, I got the final casualty report for you if you want to hear that.
I mean, not really.
An estimated 750,000 pets were killed during this process.
But 400,000 of those were before the bombing started.
400,000 of those were in like the first 2 weeks of the campaign. Like, whoopsie, way before any bombs were dropped.
I mean, it's awful. It's terrible. But, like, what the fuck are people doing?
You'll be happy to know at home that NARPAC would be disbanded in 1945, and all their assets, including the damn armbands and the emergency vehicles that were allowed to run during the bomb raids.
The badges, too.
Yeah, and the badges. They were all given to the PDSA, who are still guilty because you were all like, I'm just following orders. Well, you know what we did with the Nazis that were just following orders? Yeah, we killed them. Or, we let them come to the United States and work as scientists. But
I mean, every person has a value, Tommy. All right, that's it for this week in Historic Hindsight. Thanks for listening. Be sure to subscribe, rate, and review, and join us next week when we talk about railroads of the Civil War.